The other one that we've been putting investment in for 10 years is RaceDay Scoring. And it just released version 5, and there were kind of two big things about it, in terms of its performance as well as moving to this real-time nature. And so I think that MTE and RaceDay Scoring both show the type of long-term investments that our company can make and the type of talent that we have on our development team that then enables us to be a whole lot different than everybody else out there in the marketplace. So with that, I'll hand it off to you, Matt.
Thanks, Allison and Bob. So we're going to start with a bit of slides because a lot of the improvements initially are around performance updates and improvements that are a little difficult to demo. So I did want to start it off just by saying that, this is a big milestone for us. Version 5 was a major deal. And it's not just the performance updates, it's also this real-time aspect that Bob's been talking about and that we have been talking about for the past few months around RaceDay Scoring. It's, what does real-time mean for users? It really is all about the core reason why we think RaceDay Scoring is amazing from the very beginning was that it was real-time syncing. That was the big selling feature for RaceDay Scoring is, hey, you could use RunScore, you could use Race Director, but you'd have to manually import your participants. You'd have to click a button to upload results. So we really envision real-time as something when we're building new features, we want to think about how is this improving the real-time experience of our timers in the field, making it easier to use a product, easier to catch problems, and easier for them to produce effective results on race day. So it's kind of a real unifying principle for all the features we build. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about specifics. So let's get going. First off, we're going to talk about the big performance improvements that we have made in version 5. James is going to talk a little bit about how the Event Day team is using AI. Then we're going to dig into some features. So specifically, new features for version 5 in RaceDay Scoring. We're going to talk about RaceDay Real-Time, so the RaceJoy integration. That's what that is. And then a few things that are coming soon in the horizon that we think are pretty exciting. The reason why we needed to do this in the first place, we've been talking about this for a long time, I know, but the limitation really is that the application was built in JavaScript, which is single-threaded. Think of that as a single lane of traffic. What that means is that all the processing that we do, we're doing hundreds of thousands of reads, has to happen in a single threaded nature. So it has to wait, the UI has to wait for scoring to complete in order for the application to be usable or feel like it's usable. So what would happen is users would experience a UI freeze or slow down when it was processing lots of information at once. Caused pretty bad bottlenecks. And additionally, the way that the storage, the system they used for storing the data, it's a browser-based database. It's not really a great database to use for large data sets. There's also problems with corruption. And anyways, so these are the basic reasons why we wanted to get rid of a single-threaded nature of JavaScript and move over to Rust and SQLite. So we began writing this rework in August of 2024. We changed 515 files and 88,000 lines of new code. There's a complete rewrite for the way we process reads, filter the reads that we've processed, and create scored events. So it's a totally compiled language, which means that it is running closer to the hardware, the actual CPUs on the systems that we're running on, instead of being within a browser. So it's going to be a whole lot faster, and it's also concurrent, so it can run simultaneously. So we're talking 10 lanes or any number of lanes of traffic you want instead of that single lane of traffic. Additionally, Rust is built with memory safety in mind foremost. So it ensures stability and reliability going forward for the development that we do, and also reducing chances for bugs to happen because of the bad state in the database. And it's just a robust and reliable architecture. A lot of applications are using Rust these days. So what are the main impacts? Faster scoring, quicker results, especially for large events. It's more responsive UI, no more freezing or delays. It's more reliable, it's more stable and accurate, and it's better in terms of scalability. We can handle larger races with ease now. So just a better general user experience. And then James, you want to take over from here?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So as Avery said, this was definitely a journey. It actually started the summer before. We took our first kind of foray into, Rust, and, Michael kind of started that. So hopefully everybody can see my screen here. One of the things that happened, and I just wanted to kind of highlight that today, the process that we kind of went through, and just put that there. We were doing a webinar. We're rolling out V5. We did all this work. We got through, the entire fall. I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit of the process there. And we get to the webinar, and Soren and Avery are rolling this out. And it was amazing how many timers in the channel. Like, you have to understand, these timers are really relying on this product. And it's not something that they can wait for a Monday fix, or, it's literally real time. They're scoring the race. And there was lots of timers saying, hey guys, what did you guys do? How will we know that this is going to be, a good thing for us to go to? When should we go to it? And I was just really kind of fascinated by that conversation that was happening. And so I took a moment in the webinar to just talk just at a high level to them about what we did and what our plan was to mitigate their risk. And it was just very interesting that they were very concerned about it. So I'm just going to take a moment to talk about that multi-plan approach that we had. So the first thing we built, and this actually started years ago as we started working with Roger, was we built a comprehensive set of tests. And so Roger went 30 years of experience and thought of all the different use cases and all the different types of equipment. And Michael and him went off and built a harness. And we use this every week. We used it this morning as we did a release. And we run through all these automated tests to make sure that the calculations are working, that we're getting the reads in, and that we didn't break anything. So that was kind of an underlying pinning piece that we had, again, leveraging what we had already started. But we also have the ability to do pre and post steps that Roger can do to kind of go with a deeper regression. And the other thing that he's built is a live replay tool where we can really simulate at even 10x speed or 100x speed, like large amount of processing of reads. And so we had an Austin Marathon, which had a ton of reads, and we were in the middle of processing, and we were able to actually, as a user, see how our system was actually handling the interface while all this pre-processing was happening. The key thing to understand here is that we literally took the entire scoring engine and all the calculations and completely ported that and rewrote that in a completely different language. And so it was a very big concern, because if we got any of the calculations wrong or any of the listings weren't working correctly, we would be going out and breaking a lot of trust that we had been building for so long with RaceDay Scoring. So the first plan was that. The second part was, as we wrote Rust, we had to go and move all of the calculations into another language. And so, as Michael and Daly were working on that, they were really thinking about, let's write automated testing for all those little calculations that we're doing. It's what we call our entity get field. And so they went and wrote a coverage map of looking at all those calculations and making sure that they could run at just an automated test, npm run test, and look through all those calculations and make sure that all those things are actually working based on what we think. This is really important, because the regression tests and everything that Roger does manually, or anything we haven't automated, aren't going to actually get every single field. It's just not possible for us to set up the test to get every single calculation that might be encountered in our software. So it's really hard to provide that coverage. So this provides us a little bit more coverage on the actual calculations. So that was our second part of the plan. The third part was, before we went out to the market, we wanted, and this was all new, we wanted to be able to give timers the ability to do parallel scoring on their same machine. So they could actually install RaceDay Scoring twice on the same machine and run in parallel. So if something went wrong on that Saturday, as we were rolling this out, they could literally switch over within a few minutes to their other software and get through the day, and then we could kind of back up and see what was going on. So that was a big part of what our plan was. And then the last part of this was Avery and Soren working all their relationships. Soren's out there with people and getting people to actually use the beta version and do that prior to our main production release. So long story short, the plan was really executed well. Our first weekend, we had 88 races used it in production. We had no dev escalations that first weekend. It was a real interesting rollout for us. So again, I just want to say kudos to Michael, Daly. They did a great job porting all this code over, writing these unit tests and having these frameworks. Roger and everything he's done to help us with the automated tests and regression tests. Avery and Soren, just, it was an amazing effort, and just really wanted to kind of, highlight that. We had one game the second weekend. So things happen important. We something that should have been afloat came over as an int in the port. We missed it. It broke. But that was the only one that we really had. I got this one from Competitive Timing this week. It was about something else, but it was in an email to me. And again, it really highlights what this is so important for these timers, the stuff that we're doing. And they really trust us to build good software. And so this is a big client. He's in charge of a big book of business. He's actually the biggest book of business that we have. That he brings in for as far as a RaceDay certified timer. So before I move on, I just want to talk a little bit more about that experience of moving from JavaScript and all the other languages we work and moving into Rust, and I'll give a demo. So Daly is a new programmer. He graduated last year. We hired him. We threw him in this summer with Michael and said, hey, you're going to help Michael through this port. And so Michael segmented out a piece was that all those get field calculations. He said, look, I want you to go port all these calculations. I'm going to take all the heavy lifting on the actual scoring engine. And, again, Daly struggled, right? But we all kind of struggled because Rust language is definitely, it's a little bit difficult at first because it really is about this ownership of memory, where with other systems where you're just having garbage collection or you have reference counting and things like that, as you write your code, you're constantly thinking about who owns that memory, and do I borrow it or do I clone it? And just, it's a really interesting syntax. It makes it difficult. And what happened with AI is that AI actually helped Daly a lot to learn the language quickly, to help understand things, help him with the syntax. And it was a big benefit in his transition. And then just recently, when I'm about the demo, we're starting to move the equipment connection stuff, we call it the connector, that gets all these reads. We're starting to move that into Rust. And so I recently have been working with a manufacturer out of Europe. They do kind of like the MyLabs kind of level of equipment. And we're now implemented that for the Americas market for them. And I wrote all that in Rust. And again, AI in Cursor was really instrumental in kind of helping that transition for developers like Daly and I to get quickly into the language. Another example of this that's going on right now is Avery. He had a computer science background in school, but he didn't become a developer. But he's starting to use Cursor, and he's starting to make UI updates in RaceDay Scoring. These are just some of the PRs that he's recently done. And so now we have Avery, who's got a lot of hats in the air, but able to kind of quickly make some slight changes in the user interface based on customer feedback that he wants to work on. And then, or even like how they help documentation. Like now our help documentation and everything is going to be kind of dynamically linked into pages. These are things that a product owner or stakeholder can easily inject into the software and then create a PR, and we can bring it. And, we're kind of working through the process of who tests the tester, because Avery's been our tester, and that'll be an interesting kind of journey for us.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about some specific features that come in version 5. So like I said, the main big thing that we did with version 5 was the total rewrite of the way we filter and score data. But one of the nice features, I think the coolest features that we recently added since version 5 was this concept of real-time data checks. So we've had a system of data checks for quite a while, but they're a bit manual and they're hidden away. And so what we wanted to do was elevate data checks to be more useful and more in the face of timers, encourage discoverability so that timers know that they are there, and write some default ones so that they can understand how they could write their own. One of the coolest parts about RaceDay Scoring is that it's a really flexible, customizable platform. But the drawback there is that a lot of users don't know how to customize it. So we think if we build out some preset defaults and show them to the users, encourage them to use it and understand how they could be edited and changed, maybe they'll explore all the other cool features that we know and love. So I'll talk a little bit about data checks, because I think it's a great way to highlight one of the newest features. James is then going to talk about RaceDay Real-Time, and then I'm going to talk about some cool real-time features that are coming on the roadmap next. So real-time data checks, they basically are a way to quickly find potential issues about runners on course. In real time, as data is coming in, this information is updating, and it's detecting and seeing participants in all these different states. So on the right here, this is a older race. It's a Glass City, I believe. And they had already used data checks before we had the more real-time functionality built in, where it would show you updates in real time. So you'd have to go and you have to find the reports and you have to click one and you could see who was in it. Now we're going to show you a summary at a very high level right on the dashboard. How many participants have missed a split? How many participants were seen at the early start but started with the regular start or something like that. There's all sorts of different ways you can use data checks. We've just made it a lot easier to use, more simple, and presented to the new users a set of default ones. So our basic starting points, we'll just show you a list of everybody who's missing their gender, everybody who's missing an age, and then we'll have one for suspicious times. This is a neat little one that Roger had a very similar report for. It shows everybody that finished the race with an age grade over 90%. Now, that's just a starting point. Sometimes you need to change this, right? Because let's say you're doing a trail run and 90% age grade isn't totally accurate. Maybe it's 80 for a trail run because of the terrain involved. But it'll just give you a quick way to understand, oh, this is an easy way that I can customize this data check. And maybe it'll help me find any people who may have been cutting the course or so on and so forth. The final one here is really nice. It shows you a list of all participants who have missed at least one split in the race. And then it'll actually show you a column with the listed missed splits in there. So if you're doing a marathon, it'll show you a list of all participants who missed their splits. So I'm just going to swipe over here, and hopefully you can still see what I'm looking at here. So I've got this Missoula Marathon from our friends, Competitive Timing. And so on the right here, we now show this data check reports little panel, and it'll list out all the data checks that have participants in them. And right now I have 1 participant with a suspicious time and 135 with missed splits. So I can just click in here and it brings me right to the list of all the participants that have a missed split, and it'll show me which splits they missed. And the cool part about it is I can just say, I can customize this and say, I want to decide to drop anyone or disqualify anyone who was in this report. And you could just say, hey, I want to, disqualify this person. And it will just allow me to quickly and easily update this person so they're now disqualified. And you can click into their name, verify any information, change anything you need to, whatever. So it's just a really neat way to be able to check in, see what's going on. One of the major things we added recently was we now actually show this in the header. So instead of needing to be right in the dashboard and checking that, that little area over there, you're working on timing locations, you're doing anything else, you're looking over here, you can still check in on your data checks and actually go right to them and change that if you need to, and update the participants if you need to. So this is kind of that real-time functionality that we want to give to our timers, the ability to really see the data, see the state of the data, and updating in real time, and give them the opportunity to adjust it on the fly if they need to. So we think this is a really neat feature. It's one that I always like to highlight. And so here I'm just showing how users can check in on the toolbar now. James, you want to talk about RaceDay Real-Time?
So I'm going to simulate right now where this is the new manufacturer that we're working with out of Europe. Not new, but they kind of coming into the US. It's called RaceDay. And I'm going to simulate right now a start line where we literally have 14,000 reads. So most timers would never allow 14,000 people to go across start line within 10, 15 seconds like I'm about to simulate. They usually use corrals and other things, but we're going to kind of simulate that right now with this technology. So I'm going to hit replay here. We're going to start seeing the reads come in on here, thousands at a time. The screen is still very responsive, not held up at all. And the old version of the software, that amount of reads coming in and that amount of time would have definitely, held up our screens and everything. So the performance is pretty incredible that we've got, and definitely a big game changer for what we're doing. And we're going to be starting moving more and more of the code down into that layer as we go. And we've already started moving some of the reporting parts down. So what I want to talk about now is, as Bob said, a huge investment going into RaceDay Real-Time this year. That's our big focus in 2025, V5 for 2025. And part of that is everything we've done with RaceDay Scoring. RaceDay Scoring truly is our middleware. This is what we're going to use to get into the market in a lot of different ways and provide them a way to use a lot of the other things that we do in our suite. And one example of that is RaceJoy, obviously. And we've done an integration last year. And this makes it really easy for timers to stream their data into the cloud. And now that data can be available for doing things like in an event app like RaceJoy, so where we can have like chip-based progress alerts and other things happen. So we've been rolling this out. We provide both types of tracking now in RaceJoy, the types that's based upon just people with their bib tag, and then those people that choose to opt in and have their phone with them, and the phone becomes another source of data for that more of a continuous live actual position tracking. And this really is a push-pull strategy. I've been seeing already, this is really important to highlight, there in this one list of timers that I kind of pulled out here, there's several of these timers that are not RaceDay scoring timers. They're still not using RaceDay scoring. The Donna Marathon, Colfax Marathon, I even think Lyon with Syracuse Soren kind of say that. I don't think they really use RaceDay scoring as kind of a everyday kind of type of tool. And what we're seeing here, and oh yeah, Vermont Marathon is another example, granted. So I've been involved in a lot of conversations Soren has where we're starting to see these timers really see that they need to provide the service, and they're now providing it for these marathons. And so we see kind of non-RaceDay scoring timers getting exposed to RaceDay scoring because they're needing the, the race directors, like the race director of Vermont said, no, I need this, you got to do this. And so they're pulling these race directors along for us and getting them exposed to RaceDay scoring. And that's just going to make the evolution for them into RaceDay scoring even more powerful and quicker. And then the other is we have examples like, Glass City Timer. Been with us since the beginning, RaceDay scoring all the way, and they're starting to land big contracts and big things. This is just a running store, small timer, got into event stuff a few years ago, and is starting now to make a big footprint in that region. And they're able to provide the services that some of the other bigger timers in their area used to only get. And so now they're like, I think they just landed the Big House Michigan race and so forth. So it's really important story of both the push-pull strategy with RaceDay Real-Time. And we've had 50 events to date use the RaceJoy integration. And then what we're working on right now is what we call predictive pace. And this is where if you don't have a lot of timing data, you can't put out like New York Marathon style, every mile equipment. We are going to provide an estimated position on the map. And I've been talking with various people in the organization about how we could actually leverage our large data, RunSignup data, to provide even a better predictive context that we can use. And so this is all a big effort that I'm in right now. It's going to be really powerful. And I think there's going to be some really interesting marketing aspects to this when we come out with it. And then of course, we're updating our branding, and our main navigation pages are all kind of getting redone with the new logos and colors. And then over to you.
Before we wrap up, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's coming next, some of the cool features on the horizon. So first one is this idea of dynamic adjustments. This one's in pull request right now. It's very close to getting done. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll have it out. It's called dynamic adjustments. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, but basically it's that feature where you want to be able to give a deduction or a penalty or a credit for each donut, or it could be anything else. So we have this whole system built to allow you to base this on custom questions or custom fields. And then as soon as data is updated, wherever it's updated, so if it's a custom question, if it's updated on RunSignup, or if it's updated with the check-in app, the adjustment factor is applied automatically in RaceDay scoring. So it's a really cool feature. I'm going to dig into it in just a minute. Next, we're going to add in a bunch of data check updates that are coming soon, some more defaults. Show me everybody who's got a missed start read, but they have a finish read. Show me everybody who's got their backup time selected, and not a primary time or used a backup time. And then a custom report that would basically be show me everybody who we think started in the wrong wave or the wrong corral. Next is a bit further out, we're working next, or a big project is going to be this real-time awards progress. So this is at a high level, we want to be able to show how close we are to being able to present awards. It's a really important thing for timers. They hate being bothered by race directors. saying, hey, when can we do awards? When can we do awards? So we want to automate that process. Again, that's the big thing with RaceDay Scoring. We want to automate as much as possible for timers to make their event day experience better. And so the idea is, based on the total number of registered, checked in, or started, how many awards are we going to give out per band? Let me drill down into an event and see which participants are still on course that may receive an award. And basically, we'll give them that summary level data at a high level, but then they can drill down into it as well. And then eventually, this data is going to be made available on the timer dashboard. And then eventually, we can make it a public page from there out. So you'd be able to share this link to a race director, and they'd be able to see, hey, you know, I'm 90% full, and within this band, I'm waiting on 2 80+ women or something like that. So it's a pretty cool idea we have for this, and it's the next big project for us in terms of real-time functionality. So let's talk a little bit about dynamic adjustments. So it's a really cool feature, I think. Basically, timers can set up their adjustments based on custom questions or fields they define. It's totally flexible, allows you to adjust how many times an adjustment is applied, the count, and the amount of time that is adjusted, so the duration. So you can have fixed values or dynamic calculations based on the data. So basically, you could have a custom field that keeps track of a number that is updated externally by like the RaceDay check-in app. And then the other side of it is you could have a variable time field. Now that time could be a custom question that's an exact adjustment time for each participant. So Matt Avery, I'm just going to say they got a, you got a 1 hour penalty, whatever. Or it could be a drop down where you, for each option in that drop down, you define a different time value. So you could have different levels of penalties, like, if for a 2-minute penalty, a 1-minute penalty, and a 30-second penalty, you could have the check-in app set up to say, okay, I'm going to select the penalty type for this participant, and you could say he got 5 red, 2 yellow, and so on and so forth, and those are coded into the application to different time values internally. And then the coolest part, obviously, is that all of these adjustments respond in real time to changes in the count or duration fields. So timers can use like the RaceDay check-in app as a way to input these dynamic changes to participant times. So now they're being able to control the actual adjustment factors using something other than RaceDay scoring. So it's really cool, and there's a lot of interesting opportunities for this, I think. But basically, it's going to further give even better tools for timers to handle more complicated events and scenarios and get creative with the ways they can use RaceDay scoring for their events. Here are some examples. If you're doing an obstacle course, sometimes they need to say, hey, everybody who missed this obstacle gets 2 minutes added to their time. So you would have a volunteer out at the obstacle, each obstacle, and they would be updating a custom question using the check-in app, going right to the participant, edit participant custom questions response screen. And they would update that to say they got a penalty because they missed this obstacle or that obstacle. And maybe each obstacle has a different time field variable. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. All that syncing back over to RaceDay scoring in real time and updating their times, and the results get updated. A violation penalty. So basically, like, apply a penalty for like 2 minutes based on a selected violation type. This is like what I was saying before. You might have a level 1 penalty, a level 2 penalty, a level 3 penalty. For each of those, you could have a count factor. So you got 5 1-level infringements, 2, 3, so on and so forth. And it all comes together to their total adjustment. You can have a bonus for obstacles. If someone, does an obstacle, they get 30 seconds subtracted from their time. The donut eating bonus is a very, cool one that we see sometimes. You get 30 seconds off your time for each donut that you eat. So you just have an internal custom question where you're tracking how many donuts each participant has eaten. And then a custom fixed adjustment. This is a standard one, but basically just, I have an open time field, and I'm going to say that Matt Avery got 30 seconds off, James Harris got, a minute off, so on and so forth. So it's like 1,000 ways you could use this, and it's really neat. Just going to give us more flexibility. It's going to be more simple. They used to have to actually import a spreadsheet of all the adjustments, and some timers did some pretty creative things with like updating Google Sheets and try to automate the import of it. But this is just going to give them a baked-in functionality to be able to do this dynamic adjustment on the fly. So I just have a quick preview of this. This is not out yet, but basically, we're going to be giving them the ability to do a whole lot of cool things with adjustments in real time.
Thanks, James and Matt and Allison. I think that our future is pretty bright